If you enjoy these stories or this content, please join us on the Freedom from the Struggle podcast, where we'll continue our discussions on demons and spiritual warfare. You can listen every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time on most podcast applications. You can also find us on YouTube and Rumble. We hope to see you soon. Chapter 6. How did this happen? Anthony was taken aback by the fact that little Christina was so comfortable around this apparent hellhound. He immediately went toward the kitchen to investigate this demon dog. The creature disappeared from sight as he approached the doorway. When he entered the kitchen, he only saw a strange little girl sitting at the table eating a cup of pudding. His state of confusion about the dog was remedied by Christina's introduction of her friend, Melanie. Anthony was relieved that this was not her imaginary friend. He shook the little girl's hand just to be sure. This was a flesh and blood little girl in a pink polka dot dress. Anthony politely greeted the girl and asked her to enjoy her pudding. Anthony pulled Pamela aside and asked why the little girl was there, despite the fact they were there to confront a demon. Pamela explained that Christina had asked to have a friend over until the other guest arrived. Although he was annoyed, he tried to understand what Christina was going through. Pamela sensed his frustration and assured him that Melanie would be leaving soon. Anthony politely explained that it was not a good idea to have anyone over until the house was safe. Pamela agreed. As they were talking, Jenna stepped outside to take a call. Pamela also made an excuse for Jenna, saying she was nervous and needed the support of a friend before the confrontation commenced. He thought, they are not taking this seriously. Why am I trying so hard? They're not aware of the danger and have no idea that this is life or death. He took a deep breath and repented for his lack of patience. The family was not versed in the expulsion of demons. They were scared, nervous, and uneducated. The family needed to be given a little slack. Anthony asked God to remove his frustration. He was struggling with a sick feeling in his stomach that he blamed for his short fuse. He decided that it was okay for the girls to lean on their friends for a few more minutes. Joshua asked Anthony where he would like to set up. Anthony had no doubt it had to be in the loft. That was the epicenter of the activity. Joshua wasted no time bringing some chairs from the dining room up to the loft. The chairs were set up in a circle with Christina's tent right in the middle. Anthony politely asked Pamela to dismiss Christina's friend and to end Jenna's phone call. It was time. Pamela informed the girls to wrap it up and return to the loft. Nathan was already seated. At least he is focused, Anthony thought. The five of them made small talk until the girls joined them. Christina came up first, but went to the restroom before joining the group. Finally, Jenna finished her call and joined the others. The circle was complete. Anthony started with the prayer. He prayed for protection, unity, revelation, and complete resolution. Julie was asked to conclude the prayer time. Her prayers always seemed to unite heaven and earth. Her place on the team was obvious. She was a solid spiritual woman who prayed at the throne of God. There was no one better to facilitate intercessory prayer than Julie. Anthony felt covered when she prayed for the team. There were still a lot of questions that Anthony was praying for God to reveal the answers to. Was this simply demonic oppression? Was the father possessed? Was Christina the one who was possessed? Or was the demon just preying on her? Who invited the demon into the family? Or was the demon here before they moved in? Basically, he didn't know what he was up against. One thing was for sure, he would soon find out. Nathan seemed to have something on his mind. He was not doing a good job at being patient. Anthony asked him if there was something he needed to say. Nathan answered, I just have a question. What is happening to us? Pastor Anthony figured a brief education would be a good place to start. He asked them to listen carefully as he explained. There are different theologies regarding demons. I have done a lot of studying on the subject, but most of what I have learned is from experience. I've been dealing with demons since I was a child. I will tell you what I believe. When it's all said and done, you'll have to decide for yourselves. Most Christians believe that demons are the angels that were cast out of heaven with Satan. I don't think that is true. The Bible says different things about fallen angels. Theologians can debate this topic all day long. Remember, this is what I believe. We have an ancient book that speaks of such things. Most scholars struggle with this book. It's called the Book of Enoch, or the Books of Enoch. Because of arguments about authors, dates of authorship, and content, it was left out of the Bible. I'm okay with that. However, it is worth noting that some of the authors of the Bible saw it as important enough to quote or paraphrase. I think it is wise to at least consider what it says. Many Christians would want my head on a platter for simply mentioning this book. When it comes to fighting the demonic, we need all the help we can get. After Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, God removed them from the garden. He walked and talked with them before the fall. After the fall, God no longer walked with them on earth. He did, however, still love them. He desired for humans to know him. God commissioned a group of angels known as the Watchers. Their assignment was to descend to earth and teach the humans the ways of God. They were to teach humans how to use and care for the planet. They were also sent to earth to teach the humans about God's love. This was the most important of all assignments. Unfortunately, it all went wrong. These Watchers possessed vast knowledge that was meant to help the humans. Things like metallurgy, masonry, mathematics, botany, astrology, timekeeping, and other disciplines we know today were taught by the Watchers. The Watchers were far more powerful than the humans. Sometime way back in history, the Watchers went rogue. They developed a lust for human women. Instead of serving mankind, they portrayed themselves as gods. It was easy for the humans to see them as gods because of their power and vast knowledge. The Watchers and the human females produced offspring that were also godlike. They were known as the Nephilim. They were giants and also hungry for power. There are many myths throughout history where so-called gods came down and took human women sexually, which led to the birth of godlike hybrid human beings. Maybe there's some truth to these myths, with the exception of replacing the word God for watcher. These aren't stories you hear in history books or churches, at least the way I'm telling it. That doesn't mean these stories aren't true. Again, there are plenty of cultures that speak of supreme beings. For example, the Greeks and Romans speak of gods. The Sumerian people had the Anunnaki. The Mayans and Asian cultures also have their gods. Think about it. All over the world, there are majestic structures built with technologies that we couldn't duplicate today. Take the ruins of Pumapunku in Bolivia. There are huge stones there that are cut so precisely our lasers and diamond saws couldn't make the same cut. Obviously, these ancient civilizations were building pyramids and temple complexes all over the world when anthropologists say we weren't that evolutionarily advanced. Ancient astronaut theorists say that aliens helped build these civilizations. I say that since God gave Satan and his army dominion over the second heaven, which is space, these are the demons. Let me go back. God decided that the abomination created by the Watchers and the humans was no longer tolerable. Basically, the whole world was corrupted. God's ultimate decision was to cleanse the earth of the Watchers, the Nephilim, and the humans. Fortunately, God chose to have mercy on mankind by perpetuating the human race through one upright man, Noah, his wife, their sons, and their wives. It is from these people that we exist. The flood came and wiped out all life on earth. The Watchers were not allowed back into heaven and were sent to a horrible place of torment to await the final judgment. What are the sons of the Watchers? They were not allowed into heaven and weren't offered a chance at redemption like the humans. Instead, they were cursed to roam the earth as well as the second heaven, outer space. It's no wonder that we hear stories of people being visited and tormented by beings from outer space. Here's the problem. Why do these children of the Watchers hate us? I believe there are two reasons. The first is we are made in the image of God and they hate God. Secondly, we are recipients of God's grace. We get forgiveness and they don't. These are the demons that haunt us today. Most people never know they are there. They live in blissful ignorance. They don't make us do anything. Most of the time, they just influence us. They whisper in our ears, reminding us to stay unforgiving, hateful, judgmental, and selfish. We are the ones who are always one step away from sin. 90% of the time, the demonic go unnoticed. Occasionally, it becomes this. These demons desire to have power again. They desire to have a human body again. They are always looking for a way in. They find a target and begin the methodical deconstruction of that person. Remember, these beings are cunning and intelligent. They have thousands of years of observation to know how we think. Someone in this family opened a door and the demon walked in. It found a target in this family and worked intentionally to work its way in. First, it infested your lives, subtly at first. It was little things that you could easily dismiss, like hearing a noise or things disappearing and reappearing. You knew something wasn't right, but you couldn't quite figure it out. Once it had a foothold, the spirit became oppressive. That's what happened to your family. The oppression here has become intense. It is starting to make you feel crazy. That is the goal of the demon, to wear you down. If it can wear you down, it hopes you will reach a point and surrender your will. I know it sounds crazy. Why would someone surrender their will to a demon? Well, ask a person who is sleep deprived, angry, abused, and exhausted. They just want it to end. By the time a person or family even realize this is evil, they believe they are powerless. That is not true, but they believe it. Even when they reach out for help, they are ridiculed, shunned, isolated, and avoided. Even clergy tries to help, but is ineffective. That gives the illusion of powerlessness. Just when the person can't stand it anymore or has been thoroughly deceived, the demon will make an offer or trade. Maybe it's a promise to remove the torment. Maybe it's a promise to give something the person always wanted. The person then surrenders. The demon is a liar. There will be no relief. The person will be possessed. At this point, there is usually only a little bit of time before death. The demon will use the person for some purpose, then discard the body. Many police officers and mental health professionals don't realize that many suicides and homicides are the result of possession. The good news is that God can save us from any stage of this process. The bad news is, the longer this goes on, the harder it is to rid a person or family of the demonic attack. There is hope. If we confess our sin and know in our heart that God's love and grace are more powerful than any demon. It is about faith in Jesus, not faith in the power of a defeated demon. Defeating a demon has nothing to do with the power of that demon. The demon is more powerful than us. That's okay because God is exponentially more powerful than any demon, even Satan himself. It's about surrendering ourselves and letting God fight this battle on our behalf. We struggle to do this because by the time we realize that we are in a battle, the demon has compromised many areas of our lives. It pushes a button or two, and we lose faith. An exorcist can show up and expel the demon. That is actually not the hardest part. The real test comes when the demon comes back to see if the person or family has filled the holes that the demon was using to get in. First things first, we'll send this thing away. Then we will work on filling our lives completely with the Holy Spirit. If we are full of God, There is no room for anything else. The family sat in silence, letting it all soak in. Anthony allowed the silence to ring before finally speaking. Tonight we find out what we're dealing with. Then we can send it away for good. We must all stand together. The family nodded in agreement as they stood up. He then asked Julie and Joshua if they were ready to begin. Anthony knew he was going to antagonize the demon to get it to reveal itself. Some people who do this type of work use religious articles like a cross or a crucifix to stir up the entity. Anthony preferred to use the truth of God to draw them out. First, he would start with the humans to see if he could get some questions answered. He asked sternly, "Now, is there anything that one of you is not telling me?" The family all looked around suspiciously. Once we start, the truth has a way of coming out. He continued, "It is better for everyone that I know everything up front." They all sat in silence. He again let the silence linger like smoke in the air. Anthony then said, "If you have any secrets, let them out. Share them. It is for the safety of the family that I am asking. Have there been any Ouija boards, spells, incantations, or any other witchcraft?" The family simultaneously said no as the atmosphere got very heavy. They all wondered where that nice pastor had gone. Finally, Nathan said, "I honestly think my dad must have brought this thing here. He would have never done what he did unless he was under the influence." Anthony noticed that Jenna was uncomfortable with the topic. As much as it pained him to think of tormenting her, he was going to have to ask her what happened. He gently spoke as he inquired, "Jenna, what do you think?" She was so shy and introverted, he thought she would continue to shrink herself until she disappeared. Pamela asked, "Do you have to do this, Pastor?" He replied, "Unfortunately, I do. Jenna, I'm sorry, but I need to know what you think." The young woman finally spoke up and said, "I don't know what happened to our family. We used to be so happy. I don't know what else to say." The whole family was in tears except for Christina. Anthony's hair stood on end as a slight suspicion was quickly becoming more of a possibility. As he opened his mouth to question Christina, he was interrupted by a sound so haunting his blood froze in his veins.